Okay, so Brian usually starts these, but he's not here. And so I don't actually ever know how to start a podcast. But I'll just say we're here with Representative Emerson Levy.
I'm excited to be here
Thank you
on your
for
Crosstabs podcast. I will give you a kickoff.
thank you for making the time. We've been trying to plan our episodes better. It's not working, but we're trying. And I want to do at least one interview a month. And so now I've hit my quota. But we're here in session, and so the opportunities for interviews are just really through the roof. And so we're going to try to do a lot of them this month, and this is one. Brian doesn't. It's not that he didn't want to be here; it's just that he's in Arizona for the weekend, and so he can't. So it's just you and me.
Am I your first Democrat?
No, you're not our first Democrat. I'm trying to remember who we had on that was, but you're the first Democrat of this year.
Well, I'll take that.
You're the first interview of the year as well, and
Perfect.
The first interview of the session. So, yes, many people are demanding, and I've been getting many texts demanding to have you on the podcast. So I've appreciated that you are willing to make the time.
You're like, as in one person, you asked me to go on the
No,
podcast.
I did get a text from at least one other person that I can remember. So when I asked you what's going on in your world, of course we worked together quite a bit when I was working for Senator Knopp and still as I'm working for Representative Breeze Iverson, and we love working with you in your office because I think you approach things from a very common sense perspective, which I like. But one of the things that wasn't necessarily on my radar, AI is taking off, and I'm having to use it because we have giant omnibus bills in housing that I'm trying to understand and cannot. And so I have to write our housing memos for our Republicans, and so I'm using AI to help me synthesize this language. And if you drop a bill in there, especially with Google Gemini, you take the PDF of the introduced bill, you take the PDF of the dash amendment, and you ask it to apply the amendment and then tell you the effect. It's pretty good at giving you like a good synopsis of if I just redlined the bill myself. So AI is really taking off. But it sounds like you have a bill that is specifically dealing with protections for children around AI. And so can you walk me through how you got to introducing this concept and why it's important?
Yeah, I think you point out a really good like features of AI, and AI is important, and AI is here, and we're not trying to say AI is bad. I use it all the time for a lot of the same things that you're mentioning. I use it, when I'm doing a lesson plan or things like that to get me going, and that to me is the key part of AI. It's efficiency, quick thinking. It's not a replacement for those things, but it makes us more efficient, especially when we all have very, very busy jobs. But we're also grown-ups, and we have our prefrontal cortex fully developed, and we know what we're asking, and we know that we're using it for work. But what we're seeing with our youth is it's specifically these chatbot companions. And I want to give not representative anymore, Senator Lisa Reynolds a start in her committee, and she's been working on this as well with Representative Wallen and Representative Dobson. Our mom group that's working on this. And so it's a chatbot companions that are talking to our kids about their mental health. So when this first really became really on our radar, it was a California situation where the chatbot gave instructions to write a note about suicide to a child.
Oh.
And this child acted upon this. And at no point was the child directed to 988 or, that kind of things. And that's why Lines for Life is involved in this bill. And so we know that 72% of kids in ages 13 to 17 have used AI companion chatbots.
Wow.
And I've never used it for like, how am I feeling, right? I use it, can you explain what this term means? Or, can you summarize this bill? But our kids are using it for not only for emotions, but also, I would say, sexual curiosity. And that is opening them up to people that are not safe.
Oh, wow.
So what we're asking for in this bill is to have guardrails that if a kid is talking about these issues, that they're directed to a 988 or services. We're seeing that happen more and more, but it doesn't happen all the time. And so I was on there the other day and I was like, let's try this out. And I said, why do I feel X, Y, and Z? And I was like, let's just see what it says. It used personal pronouns. It freaked me out so much that I almost jumped back, right, from the computer. It said, I'm here for you. I
Ooh.
understand. Like, I'm here to talk to you. But so when you think about a kid that doesn't maybe have a healthy home environment
Yeah.
and someone saying, I hear you, I see you, I know you, it can create this, I don't know if parasocial is the right relationship, but so that kind of power,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you can be able to ask a chatbot about something you don't want to ask your parents about, which is
Right.
when you talk to the police. That's kind of where it starts. It kind of starts maybe in an innocent, more curious place, but it doesn't always end up there in the
Yeah.
end. There has to be guardrails.
And I think you bring up a really good point. So a couple of questions. Are the companions different than the chatbots? Are there two sectors of AI? Because I'm trying to understand, like, is it just, does it cover all of them, I guess? Would it cover a Chat GPT, a Google Gemini, a Claude, a Grok, or whatever, and then any other new product that's coming on the scene as well that may have a picture component or a speaking component also?
Yeah, the really cool part about this bill is we were able to work with a nonprofit that just does this tech stuff. They used to work at Facebook and Google, and they have provided us this
That's
technical
great.
assistance in a way that I just don't have that information. I don't know how this stuff works. So I can say the answer is yes, but I can't explain the tech around it.
Sure.
But it really, so for any AI, so when I tested this, I was on ChatGPT,
Okay.
and I was surprised to see that amount of personal pronouns on ChatGPT, which is, I would say people see it more as an academic
Yeah.
thing. I know the other ones are even more personal.
Yeah.
So anyone who's engaging in an artificial intelligence way with a youth. But our tech person on the hearing does a much better job of explaining it. But I don't know how we would have done this bill without their help, because it's just so technical.
No, 100%. And I think too, it's a really smart look, because I'm thinking about, like, I didn't get a phone until later. I was homeschooled, and we were a little bit more restrictive in my house, so I don't think I had a phone until I was 15 or 16, and my first phone was an iPhone, so I didn't even have, like, the just traditional phone first, because at that point I was already working for my dad, and so but you have kids growing up doing a lot of texting, doing a lot of messaging, doing a lot of Snapchat and things like that. So I think the chatbots look like the kind of communication they are used to with real people.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think as a society, we are a lonelier society. We're a more secluded society right now because of of technology and advancements like that. And so if you're feeling lonely, not just as an adult, but also especially as a child, you're texting,
You're
and it's
texting.
and if it's using personal pronouns, it feels like a person or somebody with a personality. And unfortunately, I think you see folks. I saw an article about even an adult that got sucked into a relationship with, like, a chat bot, and it totally screwed up their marriage and totally screwed up their life and all this stuff. And I think those cases are rare, but it's not a reason not to be cautious, and it's not a reason not to look at what can we do to make sure we're protecting people as much as possible.
Yeah, and I say, what I've learned about from the chatbots, especially with kids looking at explicit content, we're not really tackling that in this bill. But I just want
Is that a problem right now?
parents to know it's a problem.
Oof.
And I found out it was a problem from our Ben PD and our Redmond PD.
Wow.
So that they're seeing it arrive in a bad place. It starts here, but ends here.
Ugh.
So, and I wasn't aware of that until really just a few weeks ago. So that's up next.
Something
That's
to watch.
harder because that's content regulation, and we don't want to regulate content. We're running afoul with the First Amendment. It's tricky. It's tricky. But
Yeah.
this bill just says if a child, a minor, is engaging in, words with the AI chatbot that might thinking of harming themselves, that they're encouraged to go to 988, and that they are encouraged to talk to a real human about their problems.
All right, something to watch for in 2027, maybe coming soon. So you're co-chair of the Natural Resource Subcommittee. That's one of the reasons we get to work closely with you. The Natural Resource Agencies, there's 17 of them.
Really 14 main ones.
14,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And those are some budgets that are, I think, super impactful to a lot of, especially suburban and rural Oregon. I mean, I think there's obviously stuff that affects urban Oregonians as well, but these are rural,
Yes.
and they have significant rural impacts. Talk to me about how natural resources fits into the larger budget picture, and what's your goal or your idea about where you'd like to go with natural resource agencies and that kind of this direction of the subcommittee, maybe.
I love this. No one has ever asked me this before. So, our natural resource agencies are everything from, what you hear about a lot like DEQ, but also, fish and wildlife, Dogami, that's mining and minerals, which is really relevant right now. Lots of different OWEB, right? That's how we get money to communities for clean water. All of those things are really important. And so our natural resource agencies have been hit pretty hard. If I want to back up to 2008, so back to the Great Recession, what happened at that time and the budget history is that the natural resources had a bigger chunk of the general fund pie. Right now we've got a little under 3%, which is really small for a state that kind of prides itself in natural beauty. When you look at Oregon values and beliefs, it's the thing that all people, regardless of political party, have in common with Oregon. They love the beauty of Oregon. They love our state parks. They love being able to get outside easily. But it's not something we really invest heavily in at all.
Yeah.
So the recession hits. People still need permits. They still need to do life, with water. They still need to grow food. And so the regulated community took on, a lot of that fee responsibility with the hope that eventually, as we made more money, and that as the recession got better or waned, that the state would come in with more. So that never happened.
Right.
I think this year was the first time with the Water Resources Department that we actually put like a general fund in to like defer permitting costs because, if you're we know our farmers in Eastern Oregon are struggling with drought.
Right.
The fee increase that they wanted to put in would have taken like a $6,000 permit into $15,000 territory, which is like, that's a different number. Right. And so we were able to get general fund investment thanks to Rep. Owens and Helm, really proud of that investment. And so that's my vision is really twofold, is really to stabilize the budgets, to rely less on the regulated community. When I say regulated community, I know we're also talking about the Intels of the world, but I'm really talking about the farmers that have been bearing the brunt in the ag community, to see like where we can come in, kind of outside the box thinking. But I also want people in the state to know what these agencies are doing. Like Fish and Wildlife is about to be one of the first states ever, is my understanding, to delist an endangered species.
Wow.
So they're doing great work. They're piping canals. They're doing work that is not maybe exciting, but to people, but it's important. Like all the work that they've done to stop fires and prescribe burns. And so I want to start telling stories and encouraging agencies to tell the stories of what they're doing. Would we know about juniper sucking up water if we didn't have this job?
100%. We wouldn't. I wouldn't.
No, right? And so that's I want to start telling more stories so people realize the value that these agencies have, that they do so much with so little. And I know that they can also improve, and we're really working on that. We're really building relationships, and I think we call it the fun committee because we do have a good time, but also we work really collaboratively. And I've just seen agencies improve. We still have ways to go with permitting times and things like that, but we're on it.
I spent some time obviously doing not true journalism, but I was writing at Oregon Catalyst, and I was trying to learn how to write stories and stuff like that. And so those instincts all kicked in when the DEQ hack got reported. And so we won't get into that today, but I think that's just kind of one of those fascinating examples of things that just happen that you don't even plan for, that end up taking a lot of agency resources, that end up resulting in a budget appropriation and stuff you have to manage around. And so it's kind of interesting. I also think that the natural resource agencies, one of my favorite is Department of Forestry, because we have, obviously in our district, we have Ochico Forest, but there's a lot, even on the west side of the state, there's just a lot of trees. And we've had fires. And so talking about, how to be effective users of dollars. And one of the authorities that are out there that have been talked a long time about is Good Neighbor Authority. And if we invest a little bit of state dollars in, we can get a lot out. We can get a lot done on federal land, which has been a big problem in terms of managing. And so there's definitely there's hundreds of opportunities like that all throughout these natural resource agencies, but it does require upfront dollars. That's not a fee-based thing that's not something you can
Right.
fund with fees. So I love that is the direction. We'll see, obviously the budget is big. Education, corrections, human services really suck up a
They
lot
take
of
it
the
all.
energy, and everything else is the kicker and everything else, right? And so there's all these competing interests, and but you get to go up there and bat for the natural resource interests.
For the little guy, yeah.
For the little guy, absolutely. That's awesome. I think the last thing to talk about, because I pushed Brian pretty hard to shorten up our episodes.
Okay.
So my goal is like 30-ish minutes, and I generally find that each topic takes about 10 minutes if you're going to be thorough, which I think, we do a pretty good job at.
Can I add one more thing about the cyber attack
Please.
first? I think when we talk about change in agencies and how they interact with the legislature, when Rep. Reese Iverson went pretty hard at DEQ with the lack of information and how we were getting emails and we didn't have information, the way that the agency took responsibility and they didn't dance around it.
That's true. I was impressed by that.
They apologized and they said we've learned, and they didn't pretend that it didn't go wrong. I think is also a reflection of change.
And other agencies should look at that and watch how that went and say, okay, maybe taking responsibility kind of sucks, but it also results in we move beyond it faster, and we build I want to say build back better, but as a Republican, I feel like I can't say
I heard you say it.
I did just say it. So there it is. Okay, so one of the topics and one of the things I've been trying to share with a lot of people, I was a little vocal during the last election cycle about being supportive of a candidate that was opposite of the party of mine. I'm talking about Tobias Reed, who's now Secretary of State. And he's doing, my observation is he is both defending the democratic values that he strongly believes in, and I agree with him on almost all of those points, and he's doing that. And I think that is because of where the Republican Party is at right now. It's kind of pushing them and making them, feel like he's just pushing a party line, but I don't think that's why he's out there doing it. And then he's also doing things like cleaning up the voter rolls.
Mm-hmm.
And so then recently, this was like maybe in the last week, he published his fiscal year 2027 audit plan for performance audits. And I think they went in deep on some new criteria and some things about how these are going to be audits that aren't chosen based on politics. Like there was an audit a few years ago that maybe, a former disgraced Secretary of State picked up on the mortgage interest deduction. And I think both sides looked at that and went, that appears to be maybe more of a political audit than anything else, right? And so looking at these audits, there's obviously still politics involved because it's all politics. But what I observe about these different audits is that they all are things that have been major news stories in the last year or two that need follow-up, which is what an audit can be effective at doing, and that the legislature needs more information on in order to implement reforms or hold agencies accountable. Like a great example, obviously, we had the 2023 and the Canopen Republican offices we're talking about released the list, right? And the running of OLCC and what's going on there. And they are doing an audit of the distilled spirit program that was kind of at issue there. There's actually looks like 2 audits in the Department of Education, both one with school district funding and then high school graduation. And those are, when you talk about education, my guess, and here's where I open it up to you because I've been talking for 20 minutes straight here, you're probably hearing about graduation rates and you're probably hearing about school funding in your district.
I mean, absolutely. So my daughter is a 5th grader, and I have to say, actually, she goes to a tremendous school, and but she goes to a magnet school, which allows for creativity.
Yeah.
Like if I can just brag for just a second, like this week, they launched to Mars, like pretend. So they got little hats.
Oh my gosh.
And we had all the parents, and I missed it, and that's the hard part of this job is I miss a lot of this stuff. hold signs like brush your teeth, we'll miss you. And they launched off, and the teachers are dressed in like little spacesuits, and the parents like worked forever. I only came for 5 hours one day and like got one part of the Mars habitat done, like weeks and weeks of work.
Yeah.
And so the school looks like Mars, and they
Wow.
lifted off. And this week they're going into the habitat where, they've got plants growing on Mars. And, we built little igloos so it looks like a habitat.
That's amazing.
And I feel like if we made more space for schools like this,
Mm-hmm.
for creative is a Scottish storyline, so everything's taught through a story. And anticipation is built into the storyline, right? So you get kids excited to go to school.
Yeah.
Their school has an 84% reading rate. It's one of the highest in the state.
Wow.
And it's like, this model is wonderful. And I balk sometimes when people say like school choice, because I feel like it's always outside of the public school system. And I get worried about who's left behind, right?
Yep.
But as far as one size fits all, it just doesn't work. And we've been the beneficiaries of a school outside of the traditional model, and it's worked really well for our family. And so I think, I hear people say, oh, kids don't learn the same, but like, what are we doing about it?
I was on the board of a public charter school. This was pre-COVID when I lived in Medford, called Logos Public Charter School. And the community that kind of really wanted to be involved with that school was homeschool, because it was a hybrid school. We had classrooms, and you'd come in 1 or 2 days a week, and then we'd also send teachers out directly into the homes to work with students. And but it was a public charter. It was authorized under, I think, the Medford School District, and it was really successful. We had to hire a lobbyist with the money that we get. So we get state school fund for each student, but there's a percentage that gets taken out by the district for administration fees, and so it's 5%. It's 5% for the younger kids, and it's up to 15% for some of the high school kids, which doesn't, that needs to be changed, but that's a different topic. But we had to hire a lobbyist to battle ODE to make sure that our school could stay open, because the hybrid model doesn't exist in statute. They have statute for brick and mortar. They have statute for virtual. They don't have it. So they exist in a gray area. And I think, I haven't checked in a bit, I think they still exist in a gray area. There's a lot of opportunities, and the authorizing legislation, I forget the bill number, but it was in the late 90s to authorize charter schools, said the point is experimentation. It's not to undermine public schools. It's to find what works and to expand on it. And maybe some of that gets copied into public school, and maybe it doesn't. And all of that is okay. And I think, audits like this, flexibility is the name of the game. We're learning it in terms of remote and hybrid. We're experimenting with hybrid at the legislature. Obviously, we have folks, in Ways and Means this morning, there was voting that was virtual, right? And so those things are things that we are learning and adapting to do. And I think it should be planned, and it doesn't need to be fast, but it needs to be done anyway. And so, those, in terms of education, I think that is relevant. There's also, honestly, and just sitting here in the legislature, we spent, 5 years under construction when you came in? CAMS was happening, right?
I'd never been to the Capitol not under construction until this week. I guess we're technically still under construction, but it's open.
Finishing work, basically. Yeah. And so he's going to audit CAMS. And frankly, I think that is, if the legislature approves your budget, which is true for every agency, including the Secretary of State, that is a gutsy audit to put on the list. But I do think that we were over budget a couple times. Some of that, there's going to be a section in the audit about Senator Tim Knopp demanding that the floors stay open and how much that delayed and increased project costs. So, he's going to be in there. But there, I'm sure, were other things that delayed the timeline, things they discovered about this old building that they did not know until they started breaking ground, all that stuff. But I think even just having an accounting of that, not necessarily to blame anybody, but just let the public know, here's why it costs more. Here's what happened. Was there mismanagement? And so, I think that's relevant. I think that's reasonable.
I will say that I was also part of the delay, because for for Representative Nguyen, who passed away in October, we really wanted to have her ceremony on the House floor. And so they had to pause stuff to do that. But we were pretty insistent that it be, where her home was. And that's on the House side, not on the Senate. So
yes,
I admit to contributing to the problem.
Frankly, I think that the House, I believe, did meet one time on the Senate floor. Is that right?
Yep.
And I think that maybe I asked the clerk, that may be the first time in history that has ever happened. Frankly, I think if Peter Courtney were here, he wouldn't have allowed it. I know they were talking about it at one point, but I can't imagine him ever going along with that. I think the House should have not shown up to that floor session. How dare the Senate be the preferred floor? It's smaller. It is cool. I mean, I worked
The
there. I
wood is
loved working there.
nicer. The walnut.
Absolutely. But I just think there's some of those things that it's okay to just be like, no, you know what? We're the House and we meet on the House floor and we don't have to meet on the Senate floor. And hopefully we never have to do that again. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see some of the results of these audits.
I know what I asked. We were on the phone with Ben, and I was talking about it'd be really great to be on the House floor, and and Ben was like, "Yeah, we'll ask. I don't know. Let's see if we're not sure if we can." And then my daughter, who's was 10 at the time, goes, "Can't or won't."
That's right.
To the majority leader, who we both love.
Sometimes people say we can't do it, and they do mean we won't do it.
Yeah.
And that's right. And that's why I think here, one of the things the skills that you have to learn is to be willing to push back respectfully with data, with a good argument, because I think sometimes people say no because that's easier. It's easier to say no to a controversial bill. It's easier to say no to increased funding. It's easier to say no to cuts. It's easier to say no to changing a law. But sometimes things do need to change. And so I think continually to, for people, for staff, for legislators, be willing to dig in, know your stuff first, right? Know your arguments, show up with those arguments, make them, effectively, and make them forcefully but respectfully. And I think that's what the system, that's what democracy, that's what self-governance is all about. And I think it gives us the opportunity to improve stuff.
Absolutely. I like the audit list. I think it's good. I think when you ask Oregonians what they want to know where their money goes, just like in their everyday life. And I think maybe the misnomer is that the legislature doesn't want that. And I don't think that's true. I think we want the information to do better and to do better every day.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think, just as you're in natural resources, there's going to be folks in public safety that say, hey, we've got some problems and we also need general fund. And there's in all these different sectors. And nobody's wrong. It's just about how do we strike a balance that's reasonable? How do we strike a balance that's responsive to Oregonians? How do we strike a balance? I mean, if we invested heavily in wildfire prevention, it's going to look like a lot of dollars up front. But the back end benefit on that could be massive. And absolutely massive. It's changing. And it could take Oregon back to where we were before, massive wildfires were a thing. And now we just expect them every 2 years or every year, right? And it didn't used to be that way. And we can get back there. There's a path there, but it's a challenging path. And there is some expense to it. But there's also payoff. And I think that's true in a lot of these areas, but it does take leadership. It takes courage. So I appreciate you kind of being willing to show that leadership, to chart a path that isn't the same as every single Democrat, to kind of chart your own path, just as some of us Republicans try to chart our own path. So I look forward to continuing to do that with you.
Well, thank you. This was so fun.
Awesome. Anything else you want to share or keep people aware of?
No, I just want to echo what you said. I think all of us charting our own path is the way back.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate your time. And there we go. 27, almost 28 minutes. Perfect little episode for people on Fridays, or you can pick it up on Monday on any podcast platform. Load up Crosstabs, and on your commute in on Monday for another long week of session of the 5 weeks that we have, you can listen and hear about what we're working on here in the Capitol. Thanks so much.